Today I'm going to take us deep. I'm coming at you from Bali, where I'm a constant shade of brown/red, working on a tan and a sunburn. And I had this thought on my mind that was inspired by a post I put up a little while ago that it really sparked a lot of conversation that I think for a lot of you watching or listening to this is going to be a huge breakthrough moment as to why you haven't got to the level of your business that you've been working towards for a long time. Because whenever we're looking to scale our business, we tend to have an outward approach. We look for funnels, we look for mentors, we look for the secret hack. And absolutely, there are times where that is the missing link. But today I want to talk about the darker side of entrepreneurship and how to do the deep personal work necessary to achieve the levels of business and ultimately the love of life that you and I crave. And I want to read this post real quick. It's very brief. But it kind of encapsulates a little bit of the thought that I had coming into today. I wrote down, I said, most entrepreneurs I meet need less programs and masterminds and more time with a therapist. You want a real unfair advantage? Be willing to do the deep personal work most others hustle to ignore. I was going to reread it, but hopefully you kind of get that. One of the quotes that's always stuck with me, I don't know whose it was, could have been Sam Ovens, could have been Alex Sharfin, any one of the smart people that I've followed and been mentored by over the years. The quote was, you and I don't have business problems. We typically have personal problems that come up in our business. We typically don't have business problems. We have personal problems that come up in our business. Now, of course, there are real business problems, right? But the point is that most of the problems we experience in business are actually personal problems that are just showing up in our business through who we are, through how we live, through what we believe, etc. And I want to share the biggest weakness that I have really uncovered about myself in the last couple of years, why I think, we've been kind of stuck where we are. And it's not a bad place to be stuck by any means, but really the thing that's been holding me back in hopes that for you, no matter where you're at, right? Whether you're just starting out, whether you're scaling, whether you're stuck at, $500,000, $1 million, whatever it might be, I want to help uncover why I think for many of us, we are stuck because the answer is not out there. It might be in here. And I told you it's going to get deep. So that was the fair warning. When I was younger, I went through a pretty crazy experience. I went through many crazy experiences. My childhood for those of you who know, was really turbulent. Grew up in a single mother household. Older brother and sister were involved in lots of interesting underground economies. And there was just a lot of things going on. I don't know if I like the label of trauma. I don't know if it's always helpful, but there was a lot of crazy things. And like many of us, there's a couple of events in our lives that we can look back on and go, wow, that shaped me. And one of the things that I've learned is, even though I'm 32 now, a lot of who I am as an adult is still like this child that, we talk about child wounds and things like that. And, there are things that happened to me in my childhood, especially in those kind of early teen years, that I'm still processing, which sounds crazy. But for you and I, there are things that if we were to look back on, whether it's the parent who wasn't there, whether it's, just a crazy event where we took an identity away from it. We're like, oh, this is who I am. Or this is a label that someone gave you that can shape us the rest of our lives. And so without giving too much away and sharing too many details, when I was 11, I found myself in a really crazy hostage situation, kind of like something out of the movies. It was terrible. It was horrible. I was staying with a family member, and we got taken hostage for a couple of days. The person who took us hostage, the I don't even know what to call it. The hostage taker was threatening to kill us. It was just a very incredibly tough time. And that's the first time that I can ever remember this emotion of feeling powerless. Had no idea what to do. I wanted to do something, wanted to be the hero. There were other people involved that I wanted to rescue, even as an 11-year-old. And I felt completely powerless. And I got liberated from that situation on my 12th birthday. So this was happening for 3 or 4 days. Very intense, very worst case scenario. It was very intense. And I found myself on my 12th birthday being kind of liberated from the situation, driving from one city where it all happened back to my hometown. And on a side note, my family and I, my mum and I, never talked about it, ever. And if that sounds crazy to you, it was crazy for me. And it was only a couple of years ago that I realized, or through conversation with her, that I found out she never knew about it, which is a whole other story. And so crazy when I think about it. I got liberated, 12 years old, and I'm driving back to our hometown, and I'm reflecting, if you can call it that, as a 12-year-old trying to process everything that's just happened. And this feeling of powerlessness had throughout my whole life then just become an unbearable feeling. So when I was 16, I was a big fan of school until all of a sudden I was like, oh, I don't want to be a part of school anymore. And the moment I realized I had the power to then be out of school, I literally quit school within 24 hours. And, despite my mum's protests, I just did a big spit. Hopefully you guys didn't see that. And hopefully you guys didn't hear that. But much to my mum's dismay, I dropped out of school on 24 hours notice, because all of a sudden this kind of thing that I felt like a lot of life in, I really enjoyed my friendships, I felt now stuck and trapped in. And I was wanting to take my destiny into my own hands, and I wanted to feel powerful. I did not want to feel how I felt in that situation when I was 11. And so I took things into my own hands, and I, became powerful again in my own eyes. And there have been so many moments where I have done, said, acted out irrationally to the people around me. And it's been even confusing sometimes to my own self as to why this is happening. Now, I'm not the person to go and just go buy a new car or do like really, truly dumb crap without thinking it through. That is, I've matured beyond just living in the lizard brain, or whatever you want to call it, where I just react to stuff. But there are absolutely times where I find myself powerless, and then from there, I start to make bigger decisions that will try and move me from feeling powerless to powerful. You might be wondering why I'm sharing this, but this is the crux of a lot of the things that I've faced in business that I imagine you can relate to in some capacities. So if I look back over the last few years of business, there have absolutely been times where we have faced business bottlenecks. How do I manage a sales team? How do Facebook ads work? How do I structure my offer? How do I price it? But there have also been many times where I have done things, where I've made decisions, where I have moved countries due to that sense of powerlessness. And I cannot tell you how much momentum we have lost over the last year. And I believe everything happens for a reason, and I'm not at all regretful by any means, but we have moved countries 3 times in this last year. Now, in one way, it's been an incredible adventure that our family has truly enjoyed. There have been lots of high moments, of course, challenging moments when you're traveling with a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. But my incessant need to not feel powerless, to not feel like a hostage of circumstances and of situations, it's like a country might feel great to me, and then all of a sudden it feels restrictive, and then I want to leave. Right. And so this whole year, even though I've managed to sustain the level of growth we had last year, and it's been a really great year in business, it's been really profitable, and it hasn't been bad. I'm not painting a picture of like I've ruined the business, but it's nowhere near what it could have been. And so much of the turbulence has come from my inability to settle down. And part of it is like, I don't even know where home is. It's not where I grew up in New Zealand. I know that for sure. I don't quite know where I'm supposed to be, but I've been fighting the sense of like feeling stuck. And so I just keep moving, and we keep moving as a family. And because of that, that spilled over into business, which has just been hard to sustain higher levels of work, higher work output, really focused projects, etc. I share this because in order to get to the next level in business and in life, I know I need to tackle some of these root issues. Now, I've done years of therapy. You might not believe it. You might not be able to tell by listening to my voice, but when I was a youth pastor, that was actually a core part of what we had to do. We had to have what we call supervisors, and we would go to therapy. And I've done lots of therapy, but the problem with therapy is that sometimes there are just things that you cannot get to, no matter how much you try and work through them. It will sometimes just come up and come out and be ready to be dealt with in certain seasons of life. And you can't, like, if we could just simply sit down and deal with all the crap in one session or in 1 year, that would be amazing, but that's not really how we work. So I know in order to get to the next level, I need to work through this dark side of who I am, this dark side that's wreaking havoc on my family to a degree. We need to stop moving, and we need to stop changing so many things, and also is like limited to what I'm able to do in business. I'm bringing this up because for you in your life, you likely have a great sense of awareness around some of the personal things that are actually holding you back in business. Some of the things that you've been running from, you've been hiding from, right? Been jumping from program to mastermind, trying to find the solution and work out from outwards inwards, rather than starting with the core of who you are and assessing and identifying the problems that personally are wreaking havoc and affecting your business. And I really want to put this challenge out here, because with most entrepreneurs, most coaches, most consultants that I've met, that we work with, there is a theme, which is that we're really scared to slow down and stop. And it's not because we're just so heart-centered, we want to contribute, want to be generous. Of course, that's a part of the core of who we are as coaches. But there is also a sense of fear that if I slow down and I stop, maybe some of these things I've been trying to outrun are going to catch up with me. And, I was talking to a really good client of ours recently, and we were on a call. And this is someone that I just love, not just as a client, as a human being. I just want the best for him. And he's just been having so many breakthrough months, so many incredible things happening in his business. And he's like, we're at this level, but I want to get to this level. I'm trying not to share numbers to kind of give people away, but this level, I want to get to this level. And in other words, he just wants to keep pushing, keep growing, get to the next level. And I fully support that. I'm fully championing that. That's why he hires me as his business coach to help him continue to reach those new levels. But I stopped and I said, hey, real quick, like how are you doing? And how's your relationship? And how's everything at home? And he said, yesterday I found myself, just bawling my eyes out into my protein shake on the way to the gym, because I'm just like so overwhelmed with, things going on at home. And I feel like my relationship is not quite where it needs to be. And in some moments it feels like it's hanging on by a thread. And I just don't really know what to do with this and with this and with this. And he brings up all these personal things that are so valid, so important. And yet in the next breath, it's like, but enough about that. Anyway, so the thing that I really want to talk about is offer and pricing. And I'm like, dude, I think more than anything else, you just need to put the brakes on with the business stuff, even if it's just momentarily for weeks. And you need to figure out how to deal with and mend and bring health to these personal aspects of your life. Because if you do not address them now, they will only snowball. It's like an avalanche in some ways. We think if we put enough distance through sheer work, through hustle, through grind, from the problems that we're trying to outrun, that eventually we'll get away from them. But it's like a snowball. And what I found is that the things we try to outrun the longest end up having the biggest impact on our downfall long term. And so I bring you this incredibly deep chat today, both from a very personal perspective, where it's just been like kind of a big aha moment for me in the last few months, which is that I've minimized so much business stress this year. I work very little compared to what I did in the past. Business is simpler, better, funner than I've ever been, and yet I've still been dealing with this sense of stress. And I've realized, even though there are business aspects I can fix to reduce the stress, I'm not dealing with business stress. This is stuff that I have to deal with personally. And for you, I imagine the same is true, that if you're trying to get to 10K, 50K, 100K, there are practical business problems you need to solve. But deeper than the business problems, there are personal problems that if you do not address, will continue to slow you down, and if not addressed ever, might eventually take you out. And so as a friend, for some of you as a mentor, I want to encourage you, if you want a real unfair advantage, not just now, but in the long term, not just in business, but in life, be willing to do the deep work that most people are hustling and outworking to ignore. Do what most people are unwilling to do, and sit with a therapist, read books, go for walks, figure out these patterns that you need to deal with, whatever it might be. I'm not a therapist. This is not my power alley, but get some help, get some work. And you don't have to put everything on hold to do that, but you do need to be aware of it. And you do need to continue to deal with it even as you scale your business, right? Don't just scale your business at the detriment of your health. Try and do both at the same time. So anyway, I hope this helps. Again, I know it was a deeper, more intense session today, but thank you guys so much for listening and watching, and I appreciate you a ton. If you got any questions or if this resonated with you, don't hesitate to reach out, and I look forward to catching up with you again soon.